So go ahead, Donald and Barton.
Okay, I just want to introduce myself. I'm one of the two co-chairs of this committee, as well as Mr. Barton. And today we're having a presentation by DEP, telling us all the wonderful things they're doing. So if our DEP person can start talking, we'd really appreciate it. And I'll mute.
Sure thing. This is Mario Bruno. I'm Assistant Commissioner for Intergovernmental Affairs at DEP. I've been with the HC about 8 years. I'm a city engineer. I used to work for DOT in past life and also Department of Youth. But DEP is a great agency. This is the third agency I work for. It's very professional. We try to approach problem solving in a scientific way because it's run by engineers. At the same token, I think we have a pretty good community affairs staff, and we try to listen to people and understand what they're going through on a personal level. One of our worst locations there is probably East 10th Street, below Prospect Park, and I've been out there a few times. So I've seen videos. I've been out there talking to residents and heard firsthand what they were going through. But anyway, what I want to do is start by sharing this presentation. Can you see that? I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that?
No. No, we can't.
Oh.
Oh boy. Share. Okay, let me try this again.
Mario, if you have any issues and need to email us your presentation, I could share my screen for you. You don't see anything on your screen now. Is that correct, everyone?
I'm trying to connect now. How about now?
That's coming through.
Something happened.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So you can see this presentation?
Okay, that's
Yeah.
better.
All right. Great. All right. So it's a presentation on flooding and infrastructure in Brooklyn Community Board 14. First, we want to talk about flooding complaints. So this is a map of flooding complaints we've received for 301, looking back about a year from, we have a couple of different dots, and I'll explain what they are. The red dots are confirmed sewer backups. And what a confirmed sewer backup is the homeowner or the property owner complains, they get a backup in their basement. We go out, we look in the sewer, and something is blocking the sewer. It could be grease. It could be a combination of grease and material. It could be a collapse or a partial collapse. But a confirmed sewer backup isn't when you get a sewer backup, it's when we get a sewer backup. And that's important. The difference is important to us because we know there's something wrong with our infrastructure. If it is grease or something kind of obstruction, we will flush the sewer out. Even if you don't have grease, it's possible you had a buildup before. By the time we got there, it's gone, and we do what we call the crew will usually, unless they're in a terrible rush that night, we'll do a courtesy flush, and we'll flush out to 200 feet in front of your sewer. Unconfirmed sewer backup, so when we go out there, you had a sewer backup, but the sewer is clear. And what that means 9 times out of 10 is that the sewer is surcharged. So the red dots are confirmed sewer backups, and you could see the orange dots are the unconfirmed, where we had people being backed up because of surcharge, and blue dots are flooding complaints, and that's flooding complaint is like street flooding or catch basin backed up. But if you look here with the dots, you can see where the clusters are of backup complaints, of flooding complaints. They're here in the vicinity of the parade grounds, right around East 10th, which like I said is probably the worst spot. They're over here along Stratford Road, some up here to the northwest, and then also down here at the bottom of the district. Now, this is the complaints from Storm Ida. Just to give you some background with Storm Ida, very simply speaking, our oldest sewers and most of the system handles about 1 inch of rain per hour. the newer sewers that we've put in handle 1.75 inches. Ida dumped over 3 inches of rain per hour on us. So almost every sewer system in the city was overwhelmed, and not everybody got backups, but a lot of people never got backups before experienced backups because the system was just chock full of water and overflowing. So this was a little different than the backup complaints we got. Remember, this map is for the whole year, and this is for just Ida. And Ida didn't necessarily correspond heavily with the backups we've seen over the course of a year. And now this is what we call a heat map. So this is a look at the concentration of sewer backup and flooding complaints in the district over the course of a year. And again, you can see the areas, over here, below Caton and Buckingham, above here. I'm sorry. On this side and some down here. And what I've done here is I marked off some of the complaints that the community board sent me, and some of these areas in purple correspond with the heat map. Here, and here. Sorry. Like over here and over here. Over here and over here. Down here. And up here and here. Now here's the heat map for Ida, and it's different from the heat map for the showing the concentration of flooding complaints, and it's different from the one for showing all the complaints for that looking back time in a year.
Excuse me, sir. Could you possibly enlarge your map?
Enlarge it? I don't think so.
Enlarge it would be helpful because it's very difficult to see specific things there.
Well, it's hard to talk. There's too much data to try and drill down on specific locations. This is just to give you, the heat maps are probably the most useful ones because this is giving you an idea of what areas flood the most in the district. But it's also relevant to what I'm talking about further on. So I just want to jump to infrastructure.
Will you share this? Will you share this PowerPoint with Community Board 14 after the presentation, and then we can make it available to those on it?
Absolutely.
So they can closer look. Good. Thank you for that. And then in the meantime, we're going to let the commissioner finish the presentation. And if you could please mute yourself.
Thank you.
Mr. Earhart, please put your computer on mute. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Joanne Brown, the chair. I'm sorry to interrupt. For Mr. Earnhardt and anyone else who is having problems seeing the map, if you hover over the presentation on the left side, you will see a magnifying glass. You can click on that magnifying glass to locally zoom in on the presentation.
Thank you. So next I want to talk about infrastructure. Now, you live in a district where infrastructure has been heavily built out years ago. DEP is still building out sewer systems. The bottom half of Staten Island is there's just a dearth of sewer systems, and we're building what they call blue belts because there's a lot of water courses leading from the center of the island south to the shore of Raritan Bay. We're also building out sewers in southeast Queens, basically areas that were developed after mostly developed after World War II. And in areas where the sewers are built out, most of our focus has probably been water because the water infrastructure, water pipes probably don't last long as sewer pipes. So right now, the only capital water and sewer project we have is this one I'm showing you, and this is SEK 002388. And this project is it's a water main project, but while we're in the street opening the water mains, we're replacing sewers. And this is really more about state of the good repair than increasing capacity. This project is probably more important that's coming up. Now you saw back on the heat map that you had areas like over here and over here and here where there was a lot of flooding. This is an area where we're in design for green infrastructure and community in an area that covers the northwest part of Community Board or this top part of Community Board 14 over here. So this project is the infrastructure, the green infrastructure we build in the right of way or on sidewalks, because sidewalks are in the right of way. That's to the purpose of it is not for flooding. We're building these under a consent order from the State Department of Environmental Conservation to reduce combined sewer overflows that go into the surrounding water bodies of the city. So you see this contract area is called OH15, and that relates to a combined sewer outfall called OH15, and the designation is because it's connected into the Owl's Head. It's actually connected all the way back to the Owl's Head Sewer Treatment Plant in Bay Ridge, right next to the Bell Parkway. So this whole purple area is an area that contributes to major contributors to combined sewer overflows in New York City. So it's designated to get bioswales. So right now we're in design, and the construction for the area is projected to be in 2023. So this area in total will probably get, I would guess, between 200 and 400 bioswales or rain gardens. So a great number of them are going to be in an area where you're experiencing flooding. So once we've built the green infrastructure here, whatever we end up building, we don't have any locations yet, so don't ask me. It will help provide some relief to flooding. It's very difficult to locate these assets because we probably at the start come up with, like in an area like this, we come up with thousands of locations, and we usually end up with about 1/10 that we can actually build in, because there's always problems with the geotechnical property of the soil. Can it accept, absorption of stormwater? And the other thing is underground interfering infrastructure. So, but this is basically, if you haven't seen them, it's like a tree pit, but it has curb cuts, and the water goes in, and it's filled with material that's really good at soaking up and detaining water. So it's helpful for CSOs. It's also helpful for flooding. So we're probably going to end up coming back and doing a presentation for you just on this project. The next thing I want to talk about is what DEP does in general to prevent flooding. And the first thing is the site connection process. So I've probably been asked a million times, oh, they're putting up that big building on the corner. Did anyone check to see if the sewers can handle it? And the answer to that question, of course, is yes. So we have a process to assure that new buildings, whether they're being built according to existing zoning or new zoning, can meet with our requirements and will not overload the sewers for existing property owners. So builders and developers who are building bigger than like 3-family homes, anything bigger than a 3-family home or a commercial property, they have to do a site connection proposal, which is basically an engineering proposal. They have to hire a licensed engineer and architect to develop the site connection proposal. And the information we ask for is the size, type, and number of connections, including, to sanitary, storm, and combined sewers, where the connections are proposed to be made, what data do they have on the internal proposed drainage systems, and also calculations for the impact of the site on storm and sanitary flow. We ask for tons of supporting documents, engineering plans, hydraulic calculations, surveys, tentative lot sheets, etc. And they also have to get approvals from Department of Health, Department of Buildings, and in addition to our Operations Bureau from DEP's Industrial Waste Unit. And those documents include data on street mapping and demapping, the builder's pavement plan, which will be if the street is dug up, how it will be repaved, what will be the grade and the drainage that's put in there, and also ground borings. In addition to this, we can, when all is said and done, we get the site proposal, we will come back and tell them, the developer's engineer, that the information isn't enough, and they actually have to do a drainage study. We do drainage studies when we're going to upsize the sewer system or build sewers somewhere for the first time. So we ask private developers to do that. Believe it or not, we put a lot on private developers. Not only do they have to give us drainage studies, but if they're building in areas, and there's a lot in Brooklyn that have been upzoned for taller buildings, and they go in and the site connection meets the as of right requirements, but the sewer hasn't been built yet, the bigger sewer that the drainage plan requires after the rezoning, if the bigger sewer wasn't put in, it wasn't funded, we will ask the first developers to build the sewer required to reach the nearest trunk main that can handle their flow. So we actually have developers building new sections of the sewer to protect existing property owners from flooding. And I'm going to send you the presentation that has links to this process. The other thing I want to talk about, last thing I want to talk about, is the stormwater rule. Now, back in 2012, we revised the stormwater rule so that what it did was, for basically large developments, it increased the amount of water that they have to detain during a storm by a factor of 10, roughly. What the unified stormwater rule is, we're going to greatly increase that again, because there's a great need to do it, and obviously Ida was a good example of that. What we want to do now more than ever is, wherever new construction is happening, we're asking them to build infrastructure on their property that can help relieve flooding in the sewer system. So we have two kinds of rules. We have rules for sewers that connect directly to the water bodies. We call those MS4 sewers. And then most of the sewers are combined sewers, like your area, but we're kind of unifying the rules in a way that's going to not only improve water quality, but reduce flooding. So managers of construction sites, they'll have to develop plans for how stormwater runoff will be managed during the construction. It'll also require that on-site stormwater infiltration feasibility studies be conducted in an effort to prioritize the green infrastructure these developers are going to have to build now on their property. And that's something DEP will review. The biggest change is that right now, the requirements for these rules apply to an acre. Now they're going to be reduced to 20,000 square feet, which, as you know, is like just maybe a row of like 5 or so homes. And we're going to provide a revised design manual to help builders and developers do this. And this is about water quality, sewer operations, addressing building site and drainage, and increasing green space on new developments. This is specifically what happened is we already passed the bill to create this rule. It's just a general language, doesn't have any details. We're getting ready imminently within the next few weeks to release a draft rule, and we're going to take comments from the public, and especially from property developers, owners, and the industry. So like I said, the rule about impervious surfaces, this is going to be about, so in areas where they have to apply this, we're going to be reducing the size of an acre to 20,000 square feet. And even the creation of 5,000 square feet, even it's smaller than that, but they're creating 5,000 new square feet of impervious surfaces, that will trigger them to have to use this process, this rule that we're developing. And here you're basically seeing the overlap between two different things: water quality requirements, which are currently in Chapter 9 of the Stormwater Rule, and stormwater quantity and flow rates. And what we want to show is the intersection of these two requirements is the implementation of green infrastructure. Now, this is the types of green infrastructure you're going to see on new buildings after this rule is published and then adopted. So they're going to have to adopt efforts for things like infiltration, evapotranspiration, which would be like a green roof. Reuse, a good example of that is the building is built with a gray water system so that the sanitary flow from the toilets goes to the sewer, but the gray water syncum from the sinks and tubs will go to a process to be reused on site for like secondary uses, non-drinking water uses. And then there's filters like sand filters, a detention tank like a cistern, and then hybrid functions that combine these kind of and then hybrid features that combine these kinds of functions. And then I want to just show you quickly these kind of practices that are going to become more common now in new buildings. Green roofs, I believe this one is in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Cisterns, which are basically above ground rain barrels or below ground storage tanks. Permeable pavement. DEP funds projects to increase green infrastructure on private property. And this is Queens College. We funded the replacement of this whole plaza's pavement, and these are permeable pavers, so they act like just like soil. The water goes through them, through the joints, and passes to the soil below. And this is bioretention areas, or we call them more commonly rain gardens. And if you go to an area with a very large parking lot or a campus that's new, you may already see features like this, but you're just going to see more and more of this on in new developments. What are the benefits to the city? We're going to require more on-site stormwater management. It's going to improve water quality, reduce flooding. It's going to reduce the burden on public infrastructure and also reduce energy demands. It increases green space and aligns with the 2019 Climate Mobilization Act. In the separate storm sewer areas, which is Staten Island and the southern coast of Brooklyn and Queens, this is going to result in a reduction of over 10,000 tons of suspended solids over a 30-year period. In the combined sewer areas like yours, it's going to result in reductions of over 362 million gallons of polluted combined sewer overflow into the water bodies by 2030. And the time frame for this, we've already gone through most of it. The law was passed to allow the rule to be drafted last year, and this month or next month we'll be releasing the draft rules, and it's going to be very complicated and challenging. I already met with the General Contractors Association, so they know what's coming, and they know they have to take on new skills and to build new buildings that they didn't need before. And now I'm ready to take questions. Let me just lower this.
All right, well, let's start the question and answer period. Does anybody have a question yet?
I mean, I have a few questions, but what I'd like to do is sort of defer to the board members and the public, since there seem to be a few of them here. So I would like to first hear what they have to ask, and then I'll fill in if any of mine weren't addressed. Thanks.
Perfectly. Great.
The hands up came from Glenn Woolen, then Lauren, and then Liz, in that order.
Thank you. I'm curious as to when you think this will go into effect. That is, when new construction projects begin breaking ground, we'll have to abide by these new rules. Have any idea when that may begin? Thank you.
Oh, sure. I expect that sometime, since we're introducing the rule now, that we'll adopt it sometime next year, hopefully by the middle of the year or sooner. But the legal process sometimes gets dragged out. Rule writing mostly falls upon the agency writing the rule and the law department. So really the devil is just making sure that the rule doesn't conflict with existing city or state law. So that sometimes it's a lengthy process, but I'm positive the rule will be passed next year.
Hi, this is Lauren. I had a question about the combined sewer system that we have right now. And is there any attempt to move to something that is separating things out so that there's stormwater is separate from sewage?
Well, since the combined system is so pervasive, it's probably a very long-term goal to separate it. But there are projects probably closer to the waterway where we've done that. And then one example I'm aware of is at College Point and Whitestone, where we actually did separate sewers because the system ends up there. And so the combined sewer became the storm sewer, and then we built an additional small sewer to take sanitary flow. But the strategies that we're following, you know, in cooperation with the state, are implementation of green infrastructure. I think we built like 8,000 or 9,000 rain gardens since we started 8 years ago. Green infrastructure is a big part of it. The stormwater rule is a big part of it. The other strategies that we've implemented are overflow tanks. There's a huge facility, for example, down in like Bergen Beach, and that's basically an overflow facility. And we've built a bunch of them, and we have more coming. And the overflow facility is just a huge tank, and it has pumps. The tank fills when there's overflow, and then fills to its capacity, and then that doesn't pump out until the system is clear again. So in addition to that, we're also looking at strategies to where there is where we have overflows to disinfect the effluent as it's leaving. And the reason we're doing that is because then it'll have in an area where we can't implement something bigger right away, it'll reduce if we kill the bacteria in the effluent, that'll reduce the impact on the water bodies.
We could ask Esta and Marion to mute, please, and then Liz Denise, you are next on the list of questions.
Hi, my name is Liz Denny's, and I live on East 10th Street, just south of Prospect Park, parade grounds. And whenever there's a heavy thunderstorm or flooding, or flash flooding, my block really floods. It sounds like you know this. These floods always involve a steady flow of water from the park that usually comes up to like my first or second stoop during the flooding stoop step. And additionally, many of the basements on our street have flooded with unsanitary sewage backing up. I've been dealing with this for 6 years, and many of my neighbors have been dealing with it for decades. This past summer, my partner and I spent a small fortune to put an extensive and expensive backflow protection system in to stop the sewage coming in our basement. And because we were in the middle of this work during Ida, and because the city hasn't ever meaningfully responded to my 311 complaints before, we didn't make a complaint despite getting flooding and despite many of my neighbors also telling us that we were getting flooding. My neighbors often tell me that they've stopped reporting these issues because the city hasn't followed up on any of them with fixes, even after it's made the local news, which happened before I started living here. I'm really glad that DEP is putting in rain gardens. I think those will really help the district, but it's not going to address the heavy flow of water that comes from Prospect Park during thunderstorms onto East 10th Street. And that means that we're going to be relying only on these expensive fixes in our own homes that don't even address the deep running water on the street and the sidewalk, which present a safety issue for everyone. And especially as the climate crisis comes in, all these problems are just going to be getting worse. The nearby sewerage system needs to be fixed near us to have more capacity so that it doesn't get overwhelmed during these storms and create these dangerous conditions inside and outside of our homes. And I want to know what DEP is going to be able to do to address this problem for East 10th Street residents. We can't keep having this happen for decades more. Thank you.
Well, it was very helpful when I went out and met with residents, and I have a lot of their phone numbers. I talked to them personally, some of them for hours. And you nailed it on the head what the problem is. Prospect Park is allowing too much water to run out of the park. So what we've done is, legally we're not allowed to spend money on infrastructure that's owned by another entity like the park, but we're doing it anyway. So almost every year we go into the park, we clean out their catch basins, we flush out their sewers, we do inspections, and that has helped. That's reduced the amount of times you've gotten flooded. But we've told Prospect Park, and we've told the council members that the park has to do some capital improvements because too much water, probably much more water than the park was designed to let flow out of the park is coming out. Their storm sewer system, a lot of it's damaged, a lot of it's, probably clogged, and they probably have to do like a whole redesign, put a better storm sewer system in there, it's a park, so they have all this permeable space where they can adopt green spaces. But they've always told us they don't have money. What I would advise you to do, and we'll keep doing what we're doing. I'll be honest with you, we could never address the problem you have along with sewers because it's too much water. You literally have water that covers the street, and the reason you get backups is, part of the reason you're getting backups is the water's coming over the street and then going into the sewers through the caps, which is crazy. And I've seen the video. It's terrible what you go through. But the park has to do its part. The good news is now we're probably getting like over 100 billion in infrastructure from this bill that was just passed. And, DP is not but just because the way city agencies operate, we're not in the best position to tell another agency what to do, but they all answer to you. So all of you should be working, with Sean and the community board to advocate that Parks gets the money hopefully from this new infrastructure funding and fixes this. And it's going to require a capital project, but I'm sure that this is something that can be fixed because the money may be available like for one time, but once in a long time. So, but again, we'll keep addressing. If flooding happens, we'll continue to try and address it. But we have to. We need more. We'll keep trying to help parks with their infrastructure, but we need them to do more than what they're doing now. And we've had conversations with them. So if you go back and say Mario said so, it's not like Mario said so. DP has had these conversations, and residents are aware of that. A lot of the residents on East 10th are aware. We've met with them and the community board, and we really need them. We've always been telling them try to find the money now. Well, now there's a good place to find the money from, and I really hope that they can do that.
Sean, I'm sorry. Don't mean to cut in because
Well, it's not. Wait, I'll tell you when it's your turn.
Okay.
I'm calling people in order that their
I
hands.
apologize. I thought since it was the same topic.
So it's good. But Ann Godette was next, and then I believe Ron. Ron Kleinhardt you were motioning to put your hand up, right? And then you, Lauren, and then Leah is who I saw next. After that is Kashif Hussein.
So I can go now? Yes?
Yes, Ann.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much for your presentation, Commissioner Bruno. It's very exciting. We are in Caton Park, where Liz Denise, the former speaker, is as well. And yes, we do have a bunch of problems down here. I have 4 quick questions that'll probably be answered at other times, but the first is, who maintains the rain gardens? The second is, when these anticipated storms arrive, the park does empty parts of the lake, which you've addressed in part, as has Liz, but in her area, there are no catch basins in part as you ascend from Coney Island up Caton Avenue. So I'm curious if there's funding there. And then you mentioned that the stormwater rule reduces, it currently reduces by about 10 times. What is the projection for the augmentation to make it more robust as you're getting ready to implement that? And then you mentioned that the Contractors Association met for early preliminaries with you and your department. So what was their reception? And what was the last question, number 4? It'll come to me. So those are the ones that are most pressing, I guess. So the rain garden maintains the catchments,
Okay.
and
Why don't you let me answer that one first?
I'm sorry?
I'll answer the rain garden question first, and we'll take them one by one.
Thank
so
you.
Rain gardens are built for, DEP doesn't build, half our capital budget goes to construction work in the sewer treatment plants, the many sewer pump stations we have to sewer low-lying areas, and the interceptors, which are the final leg of the sewer system that's connected to the sewer treatment plants. The other half we give funding to DDC, and they build out our sewers and water mains, and they combine that with DOT funding. So when the street is open, they're addressing the needs of both agencies without having to dig up the street twice. That's why DDC was created back in the Giuliani administration. So the bioswales, the rain gardens, while they're being constructed, they're maintained by the contractor, and we build those through DDC and also Economic Development Corporation. The contractor maintains them. The contractor, after they complete them, there's a 1-year warranty period where they continue to maintain them. After that time, DEP, Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations, takes over the maintenance. We have a dedicated green infrastructure unit that cleans rain gardens and similar green infrastructure and the blue belts. But even when the contractor is in the warranty period, if we get 301 complaints, by that time the asset is in it's in our database of structures that's linked to the 301 system. So once it's built and the contractor is in the warranty period, we can respond to that. The other thing I want to mention is probably the majority of the rain gardens are not even going to be rain gardens on top. They're rain gardens under what we're building more and more of are infiltration basins, which is a rain garden with a concrete cover instead of a garden. And those the maintenance requirements are a fraction of those for the open gardens. But we'll still be doing both. But I think because we've adopted more infiltration basins in the last year, it'll be easier for us to address complaints. What was the next one?
So the next one was addressing the corner of East 10th at Caton and the lack of the catchment basins.
Well, basins aren't going to help because the issue isn't the basins, it's the sewer system. The sewer system is overwhelmed. So if we put basins in, the sewer system's still going to be overwhelmed. The solution there's probably it's probably, given the limited amount of space in the street on Caton, it's probably impossible to put any measures there that would help. That's why the solution is if the park, I'm not saying even the whole park, but that part of the park, if it could be rebuilt so it really functions in a way that the stormwater rule would require it to, then you would not have a problem at all, because with the amount of permeable space in that park, they have more than enough room to adopt features, plus building new drainage areas under their, they could do permeable roads instead of concrete sidewalks. Wherever there's asphalt, they could do permeable pavers, permeable pavement. We actually are building permeable pavement, but not on the sidewalks. We're doing it in the roads. It's something that we're basically working with kind of on an experimental basis. But we're going to continue to help the park, cleaning its system and fixing it. But we need them to do more to help you. And we've told them that more than once.
Okay, the third question has to do with when this stormwater rule is redetermined. It currently removes about 10%, I believe you said, or 10 times. So what's the expectation for the new limits?
The stormwater, when it was updated in 2012, we increased the amount of detention that new property owners had to build by a factor of 10. We are going to increase it even more. I haven't seen the draft rules, so I can't tell you, what that is. But basically, I did mention in the presentation that the implementation of the rule will reduce the amount of suspended solids that go into the separate storm sewer systems by over 10,000 tons over a period of 30 years, and it'll reduce combined sewer overflows by a factor of 362 million gallons per year by 2030. So that gives you an idea of its impact, positive impact.
That's great. And did you get a good reception from the Contractors Association, I hope?
Yeah, you know what? They just appreciate, I work with them and the smaller home builders associations. And, I also have a unit that it's what we do is it's enforcement. It's called our Enforcement Outreach Unit, and they assist business and large property owners in being aware of our rules and also how to prevent from breaking our rules. So we educate large property owners like Nitro about grease, and my staff does outreach, and they meet with the managers as well as the residents and talk to them about how we don't want to flush grease and material in the sewers. And when people have questions or problems with things like grease traps, we try to help them give them advice, because our approach to enforcing the rules is that we get everybody to be good actors rather than just hitting people with fines. So, I deal a lot with people on the noise side too, people who are trying to, transportation companies, the cable companies, who get hit with idling complaints and noise complaints, and and construction sites, and we're always trying to get them to mitigate what they're doing and be good actors, rather than we still hit them with fines when they can't. But so that's what. But anyway, that's. I'm sorry. What was the last question again? I went off on a tangent.
Yeah,
And
that's
I,
okay.
and I know the co-chairs want to make sure that everybody, we have quite a queue for people who want to ask questions. So
You tell me,
that
Sean.
list, are we ready to move
Thank
on?
you.
Thank you.
We have next on the queue is Ron K, then Lauren, then Leah, then Kashif, Edson, Carl, and Bernard. I did see your hand go up, but the next three are Ron K, Lauren, and Leah.
Did you say Ron K? I just want to make sure.
Yes, that's you, Mr. Pinehandle. I'm sorry, not everybody's full name
Yes,
is coming up on the
Commissioner,
screen.
I appreciate your presentation, and as a New Yorker, I appreciate the planning that DEP is doing for New York. I don't hear very much that DEP is doing for us. I happen to live in one of those purple zones on those multiple charts that you put up, and I haven't heard anything that DEP is doing to help the people like me who live in those purple zones. So what are you doing?
Well, what's your specific issue, sir?
Well, how about 16 inches of water in my basement?
Yeah, well, what's happening is we're getting an increased frequency of microbursts, which are small rainstorms that exceed the capacity of the sewer system. So I would love to tell you there's a great short-term solution for issues like that, but there isn't, because the whole system, in order to increase capacity, you have to increase the capacity of the whole system. So I'm sure as they do build outs in newer areas or areas where the infrastructure is worn out, we're going to increase the capacity to prevent flooding. But if the climate is changing faster than we can change the infrastructure, then we all have to look at, well, what can I do to protect your property? So if I don't have the 3-1 complaint in front of me, so I don't know if what you were experiencing was dry weather or wet weather sewer backup. But if you have a specific issue, if you haven't already, just give it to Sean, and we'll get it addressed, and the crew, when they go out there, will speak to you.
See, I
But
think,
it's just,
sorry.
please go ahead.
I just think the bigger issue is those charts that you showed predate Ida. There are areas that you showed that consistently have flooding and backup issues. And I didn't hear anything being done in anticipatory prevention. I did hear a whole lot of stuff that I agree with that's going on around the city and in other areas.
No,
I
the stormwater rule.
I don't think there's anything you can do. What I'm concerned about is that it sounds to me like there isn't a lot of planning and looking at areas that suffer. I mean, we're lucky we weren't Queens, but still, there's a lot of houses on Stratford Road, near Albemarle Road, near Church Avenue, had significant flooding.
No, it's not true. We don't look at that. In fact, if anything, I encourage people to call 301 because we really do look at that data. The people that plan the capital projects generated this data. And so this is the kind of data that they use. So we have a very difficult balancing act of meeting our responsibility to build sewers for people that don't even have any. There are still parts of the city that don't have sanitary sewers that we haven't gotten to yet, that require probably a lot of money to get sanitary connections to them. So we have to balance that out with where we need to improve the infrastructure to fix flooding problems, and also the rates. Mayor de Blasio, to his credit, spend more money, but at the same time managed to keep the rate increases during these past years the lowest they've been in like probably 20 years. So that's a benefit to the homeowners. But the problem you're talking about, individually, probably requires like bigger long-term steps. We're trying to encourage homeowners, don't wait for DP to fix some of these problems. If you can fix the problem by putting a backwater valve in your house, do it, but just make sure you have a really good professional who knows what they're doing, because a lot of houses in Brooklyn or in places that were built out a long time ago, your roof drains are often tied into the line going out to the sewer. And so when you put a backwater valve, the roof drains got to be on the right side of that backwater valve, and probably a manual one works better than an automatic one. What I know are they're studying the possibility of funding a rebate program for backwater valves. So and I provided some information to that because I found about a dozen other major cities and municipalities around the country that are doing that. For New York City, anything like that's a costly proposition, and DEP can't, unless we change the state law, I can't pay you for a backwater valve. But maybe this next year, the city, once they finish the study, they'll look at how to fund something like that, and then that will be help to individual homeowners like you. Next, Sean.
Next, we have Lauren Lieb.
Thank you. That's interesting about the rebate for the backwater valve. I know I did learn when I was getting ours installed. I live on East 10th Street at Caton also.
Okay.
And I found other cities that were doing that, but there was no money at the time, and the city wasn't interested in helping us out.
That's something maybe they could fund with that capital money. I'm not sure. I don't know the law, but that's a possibility.
Hopefully, they'll pay retroactive installations as well. My question to you, and I really appreciate your presentation, and I appreciate that DEP is thinking this way about the various flooding issues and about thinking sort of towards the future. But as my neighbor had said, this has been going on East 10th Street and on Church Avenue, right around East 10th Street, for over 15 years, maybe 20 years, 10 years
Yeah.
since I've been here, and probably a decade more. We've reached out to parks. We've reached out to city council folks. We've been talking all the time to the community board, the mayor, DEP in the past. And so to hear you say, DEP can't do anything, it's parks. It's like, here we are again. This is 20 years.
No.
Like, you know, I understand that the water is coming from, you know, running out of the park, but it's also running on the street. It's also coming from the sewers that DEP controls. And I am asking you to come up with some creative solutions for our corner, because we are bearing the brunt of a city treasure of all the water coming from Prospect Park, and you and you as the agency, you as the city, are asking us to bear that burden, and that's not fair. And I think that agencies have to do more than finger pointing to come up with a solution for us. And it's not just the residents here, it's the businesses on Church Avenue that have had flooding consistently. And, you know, I mean, they're struggling already. And if they get wiped out, that's it for them. So I hope that you can come up with some creative solutions instead of just pointing us over to parks again. Maybe there's a deep tunnel or something that you can think about that other cities do. Chicago did a deep tunnel. I know it's not a whole, you know, city solution, but I ask you to think creatively to solve our problems.
Well, we do think creatively. That's what our engineers do. So we have a group called Collection Systems Investigations. That group went to look to verify what the property owners have been telling us, that the water's coming from the park. And when they looked at, those engineers looked at that, and they looked at the water coming from other sources like other streets that aren't collecting runoff from the park, everything pointed back to the park. So are systems like what you're talking about feasible? Yeah, if you're collecting over many, many blocks with a huge amount of openings, a system like that, like a tunnel, could possibly work, but it would probably be many times the cost of just fixing the sewer system inside the park. So we're not finger pointing. It's just because it's all New York City. So we're definitely not finger pointing. We're the city, and we're the experts on flooding, and that's where the problem lies. So DOB, for example, if you're a property owner and you repave your backyard and you cover your backyard with pavers, that's illegal. And that I can do. And then it might be in our code, but DOB issues the violation. And especially if they pitch it and now the water's running on your property, that's illegal. So the city, the DOB can go in and give a fine. That kind of rule doesn't exist. Parks didn't do anything like that. And I don't know if, you know, so I don't know of any violations that exist where we could force parks to do anything. We don't have authority over them. So it's not like we're trying to finger point. Our engineers figure out what the problem was. What you're talking about is an extraordinary measure that might work, but the city, just because one agency won't do what they're supposed to do, doesn't mean the other agency has to adopt a much more expensive extraordinary measure. And that's not, I don't think that's good government. But we've been doing whatever we can to clean the system out, to maintain it, which is, we're not doing that anywhere else. It's an extraordinary step for us because we want to provide some relief to you. But there's probably nothing we could build. And I seriously doubt, given the amount of space without waters crossing, there's no way we could build anything to collect the water in that short space of street to prevent it from, even if you put catch basins all the way across, that water's still going to go over the top of them. That amount of water will still go, a lot of it will not go in, and it'll still get to your block. So, you know, like I said, we need collectively to keep, you know, tell parks to do something because they can fix this.
Well, can you commit to telling parks to do something and convening a meeting between the community board and you and other stakeholders that tell them to do something?
I mean, I'm not going to put it on Sean, but I can tell you, we've had meetings. We had meetings with with the community board and with the council and with the council member, where we told them what the problem was and what DEP did about it. And the council member said to Parks to try and find money. But we've said it to Parks. I've personally met with Parks and spoken to Parks. So we have been telling them. I don't remember how long ago the issue came across my desk. Probably about 8 years ago. We've been telling them for a long time they need to do this. But like I said, this capital money is coming from the federal government. This is hopefully this is an opportunity that Parks can seize on to fix this.
And going back to the drawing board is one of my specialties. So so we will certainly do that with the stakeholders. We have new administrations coming in at various levels of government, and so the time would be right to go back to that drawing board. I have to hop off because somebody had the nerve to schedule another meeting tonight. I'm not naming names, but I am going to turn over.
Wait, before you go, Sean, before you go, because my question is specifically for you. This is actually Rizal Watts speaking on behalf of Leah. That was next in queue. So before you go, I just want to sort of address a few questions towards you. Hopefully you can keep that other meeting at bay. You mentioned that you in association with DEP have had conversations with the park. Can you characterize those conversations? What sort of solutions have they started to provide apart from the fact that they're looking for money? Do they have a plan in place that they would address or that they would tackle if they had the money? Are they in a position to provide a timeline? Or
no, they don't. So they can't do that without getting them. Look, those things happen when you hire a consultant. City agencies usually don't have the ability to design that kind of stuff in-house. So they would have to hire a consultant and then provide the consultant would then provide some different options for them to follow. And then once they adopt that and identify the money that they need, probably by the time they're ready to do a contract, they could probably provide some kind of timeline and do a presentation on the preliminary design. But you can't have a plan to fix something until you hire like really to fix something till you hire a consultant. And we have engineers, but we don't have that many engineers where we can do focus on a huge consultant design like that. So the city's business model is to hire consultants to do like one-time design projects and specialized studies.
Have you or Sean investigated the capital allocation strategy of the park and where they're putting their money? Because it seems odd to me. I mean, I don't know sort of the sourcing of all funding, but I see certain things going up. They have a wonderful dog run now that's right around the corner from East 10th Street, which is nice to see, but also incredibly frustrating to watch go up sort of in the shadow of flooding. Which, by the way, the dog park floods too. So we'll see how long it takes for that to start to erode. What kind of transparency do you have to that capital allocation strategy for the rest of the park?
I don't. I'll leave
Sorry,
that to Sean.
I was just going to say, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Parks, but we will work to bring Parks, to a future Community Environment Committee meeting so they can talk about that and answer that themselves. I do know that the dog park was not out of their direct capital budget. It was a participatory budgeting project. And so I think too, working directly with the officials for capital funding and for some prioritization on some of these projects would be useful, especially now that new ones are moving in. And so with that, I will review the rest of this. This meeting is being recorded, so I'll review what I miss, and then you know where to find us in the district office for follow-up on anything that arises here. And I will circle back on everything that we said we would. So excuse me and thank you. And you still... and I'm going to turn it over to Anya to continue monitoring. Thanks, co-chairs. Good night.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Great. So we still have 6 people who have signed up. I'm going to read the list right now. The next speaker, we have the proxy for Leah Manco to speak now. The next speaker is Kashif followed by Edson, followed by Carl Henry, followed by Bernard Earhart, followed by Matthew Denise, followed by Eva Lewandowski. So we're going to go in that order, and then anyone following Eva Lewandowski that would like to speak can use the raise hand icon or raise your hand on your camera. I will see you that way as well. Okay, so go ahead, Kashif, to be followed by Ed.
Thanks, Anya.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Mario, for the presentation. This is Kashif with the CB14 board member and also with Public Advocates Office. And I have a pleasure of working with you. I have a pleasure of working with you on so many different citywide issues. And I have two things. One, just a general comment and then a question. The general comment regarding the rain gardens and bioswales, your community affairs unit is pretty robust in outreach to the elected officials and also to the community boards and PTAs and other community-based organizations, just in case they want to do they call it the neighborhood cleanup day, where the community can join forces with DEP and kind of like get a hands-on experience on the rain gardens. It does many things. Obviously, it cleans up the mess that is obviously the accumulation of garbage and other debris in the rain garden, but also it becomes like an awareness tool for any participant to go back to the communities and their neighborhoods and talk about the importance of bioswales and how they work and how important it is to clean. So the question is, and obviously we have done one, a huge one with DEP in Queens, and we're looking forward to do in all boroughs. But the question is, I understand the capacity issue that you mentioned, and then, a certain amount of inches per hour rain can overwhelm the system. But a lot of times we have been observing throughout the city that the surface garbage, I know it's not a DEP issue, it is more of a sanitation issue. If they are clean prior to a huge storm that is coming and is going to produce a heavy volume of rainfall, that could avoid catch basins from getting clogged. And essentially the drainage problems that arise from that can be mitigated. So have you guys having a conversation with that particular agency, the sanitation department, to work in tandem with you guys to clear those debris ahead of the time, especially in the problematic neighborhoods where there's a constantly flooding issues are occurring? So that's just a quick question. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, our operations bureau, Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations, books the sanitations. I believe they've shared with them locations that they know get flooded. I think as much as it's the job of sanitation, and a lot of also because under the law it's the job of property owners to keep their curbs clean. I think the missing piece is probably more public outreach about the problem. We had an ad campaign. I think we had a couple of paid ad campaigns about idling that we did with Billy Idle, and we did another one about what we call fat burgers, the grease clogs that we get in the sewers. But we've definitely been having internal conversations about keeping, promoting the idea of keeping curbs clean before storms, because 9 times, as you said rightly, Kashif, 9 times out of 10 when people say that the catch basin is backed up, it's the stuff on top has blocked it. And so we want to educate people maybe to clean the curbs before storms, and also if you can reach a clogged basin, maybe turn over a broom handle and poke out a few of the grading holes and relieve it. Otherwise, it waits until one of our crew can get out there, and in a heavy storm that could take us a while, unfortunately. But I think you make a good point, and we're going to talk more inside DEP about public awareness to keep these areas clean, and I'm sure that'll involve sanitation too.
Great. The next speaker is Ed Sen, followed by Carl Henry.
Good evening, Commissioner Bruno. Thank you for your time. I was hoping that you might be able to address an issue within CB14 that's been an ongoing issue, specifically at New Kirk Plaza. I was hoping maybe you could talk about the upkeep and maintenance, specifically the sidewalks and the section above ground. And additionally, given your role in Intergov, can you possibly work with your colleagues at DOT, EDC, and the MTA to find a collective solution, specifically a cooperative solution?
Well, I think I didn't catch you. What is exactly the issue you're dealing with?
I think it's just there's a lot of finger pointing between different agencies as far as who's in charge or who is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance, specifically the section above ground, where sometimes there is garbage and debris and just the overall care of the sidewalk is often neglected because I believe DEP does have water mains that are above ground, and this is sitting on the trestle at on the sidewalk where over the subway tracks. And I will defer to one of our other community board members that may have a better history or understanding of this ongoing issue.
Well, it'd be very unusual to have an above ground water main because it would freeze. We bury water mains below the freeze line, so it's not impossible. I've never heard of such a thing. I don't know what we would have to. I guess we'd have to look at the location to get a better picture of what you're talking about. But DP has virtually no above ground infrastructure because of the freezing issue. Our water mains and our sewer mains are all buried. There are some insulated water mains that go along bridges, but usually even those are buried in the concrete of the bridge.
I think to what he's actually referring is that a number of the other agencies have been going back and forth trying to decide really which one of them should take the lead and how they can all come to a collective solution for the New Kirk Plaza area. And I think just if simply DEP could join the discussion and help us come to a resolution so that we don't have a bunch of different agencies sort of putting responsibilities on the shoulders of other agencies, it would just be great. So if you do at some point see something cross your desk about an opportunity to chime in on New Kirk, it would just be appreciated if you would. Thanks.
All right, we can look at see if there is a DEP issue there.
Okay, next speaker will be Carl Henry, followed by Bernard Earhart.
All right, so folks, good evening, and Commissioner Bruno, thank you for the presentation. I have a question, and I apologize because it may be naive. So if I remember correctly, there was a point in your presentation where you mentioned that for the green infrastructure, one of the requirements was being expanded so that instead of 1 acre, the lot size would be 20,000 square feet minimum, right?
Yes.
So the question I have is with development. I'm not a developer, and so I'm just wondering, could that be a perverse incentive where basically it's only the major players who have the money to be able to absorb that cost are the ones doing that building? And then the second question I have is, to your knowledge, like you said, as the city law department starts writing out the regulations and policies, do you know if any conversations are in talks for some sort of funding pool or some sort of funding structure where people who were going to do that development of 20,000 square feet or whatever that is, up to 1 acre, if there's some sort of pool of money or funding that they can tap into to absorb the additional costs associated with implementing, said green infrastructure? Those are my questions.
There's no plan to fund that. That's the responsibility of the property owner. When the city council puts, this is not driven by the council, but example is the city council made a requirement that new homes have to have solar panels. That's going to be on the homeowner. They have to have bird safe windows. That's going to be on the homeowner. I'm from Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn my life, but I live in Staten Island the last 20 years. And Staten Island is one of the places where, middle-class people can you know, a fortune, you can still build a new home there. So I built a new home, and there's no storm sewer on my block. There's no flooding because I found the spot that's high and dry on top of a hill. I still had to put a dry well in, and that added like, I guess, $20,000 to the cost of the house. So big property owners, like people building apartment houses and residential commercial developments, they have to find I mean, the site connection and the stormwater rule is basically going to apply to pretty much all new construction, or probably over, like I said, either anything over 20,000 square feet, or any development where they're adding 5,000 feet of impermeable space. They're going to have to incorporate the new rule into their design, and they're going to have to pay for most of which is like green infrastructure. I mean, there are ways you can detain water. You can just make your roof deeper and stronger, your roof parapet walls, and many people just use the open roof as detention, and that's something that's become more common since 2012. But now with the new rule, you know, doing green roofs probably any on flat roof buildings is going to be a standard thing, and finding space for green infrastructure and detention is going to be a standard thing. So it's going to be incorporated in all buildings, but the city's not. I doubt very much the city's going to fund it.
Actually, so the cost will definitely be borne on like the property owner or builder.
Yeah, we're talking about large commercial developments, basically. Large commercial industrial developments, campus development.
Thank you.
Next speaker will be Bernard Earhart, followed by Matthew Denise.
Thank you. Commissioner Mario, are you saying that the city won't pay for the infrastructure needed for Prospect Park? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying DEP can't pay for it. The Parks Department has to find the money.
Does the Park Department, is that a city agency, or is that the Prospect Park Alliance or something?
It's run by both. The parks property, if you looked at it on the tax map, it would say it's owned by Department of Parks. But those are all, you know, incorporated agencies with the city. So when with parks, like DP, when we build something, we float our own bonds through, you know, the New York City Water Finance Authority. So we float our own bonds. They actually have a lower interest. They're actually better bonds than the ones the city uses. But as far as I know, parks, absent any kind of state or federal funding, the city floats bonds for agencies like parks to do capital improvements. So it's really, you know, the city has to find the money to give the parks to do this. And I think the federal money that's coming from this bill could be a great opportunity for that.
Okay, let me ask you, I didn't know about the heat maps that you have.
Yeah.
And I'm on East 10th. I'm the first house on East 10th, right off of Caton.
Okay.
Right behind the apartment building on the corner.
Okay.
And this was the worst. We've been here 20 years, and even our car flooded. The side of the car that was on the curb, it actually flooded with water.
Yeah, that happened all over the city.
That's how bad it was. So
people died. People died.
So you know that we're a hot zone on this street.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, what we do to help parks clean and inspect, they have their own drainage system, interior. It's unique. We don't do it anywhere else.
Okay.
And we just do it because there's nothing. We want to give you guys some kind of relief, and we know that, you know, when we do that, the flooding seems to happen less often. So we're going to continue to do that. And I credit, you know, our commissioner and our deputy commissioner, who are both longtime engineers working for DP. And when they took over, they kind of embraced an attitude of let's try and say yes, rather than saying no. So that's like kind of an extraordinary thing we do because we want to be helpful to you. We don't want to just walk away from the problem and say, you know, tell Parks to do it. So Parks asked us if we can help him, and we help.
All right, whom do I write? And where do I write when I want to complain about what happened with water? Because I'm astonished our street is not one of the hot zones that you had on that map.
Oh no, it's. I think if you look on the map, it is. It is. When I was first showing there's a cluster of complaints right around East 10th Street.
It's green
it's definitely one of the hot
between
zones.
Caton Avenue and that hot spot. It looked like a space that was green. So I don't see what you mean.
Let me bring it up again.
All right.
Hold on. Just quickly.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Can you see that?
All right.
Can you see the screen?
The red spot.
Hold on.
On East 10th.
Hold on. So, you can see where I'm. See this cluster right here that I'm circling with my mouse.
I can see where the parade grounds are. Sure, I can see that.
So, and then the heat map is in the same area. So right here, this is.
Okay, they're on the heat map then. Okay, that's I misunderstood.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I misread the blue area. I thought the blue area.
No, it's quite right. Listen, I mean, when I start speaking, the first thing let me stop sharing. The first thing I talked about when I got on is your block. It's one of the worst flooding locations. It's in the city, and it bothers me that nothing major has changed since then. I don't think the level of the lake really impacts what's happening based on what our engineers have observed. It's really, as long as they're being responsible for that, it's not making it worse. But there's still so much water just running out of the park that's not going into the system. But if they redesign that end of the park, like I said, and they divert water into, or change spaces from impermeable to permeable, they could probably capture enough of that water where our sewer can handle what comes out of the park.
Well, just to echo Mr. Monco, please think of something working with them that would work, because we are.
Well, I would recommend, writing to like the citywide elected officials, because they have the most legal power, the mayor, the public advocate's office, and the controller's office, because when you guys get flooded, a lot of you are putting claims before the controller, and the controller's paying all the insurance claims against the city are paid by that office. So solving that problem will give you, will give you, the people on that block great relief, but it will also, in the long run, the city will spend less money, responding to it. I guess one of the problems with the infrastructure is when you build it, there should be a commitment for the money that the money is there to maintain it. That's one of the reasons DEP went from charging by frontage to being an agency that charges using meters, because it created the revenue that we need to, keep the system updated. And the other thing that the mayor did was we had a rental payment, supposedly for the cost of the support of other city agencies, and he got rid of that. And that saved us a huge amount of money, hundreds of millions of dollars we were paying out into the city coffers, now is staying in DEP to provide more help with water and sewer infrastructure.
Thank you.
I have.
Wait, my wife has a question. Her name is Nina.
I'm Nina Robinson.
Hello.
And we're the first house right here on the block. I look out of my front window and I see that water rushing around the corner where there is no catch basin. I see water go down catch basin, so I can't see why putting in a catch basin couldn't be part of the solution. And it could be a part that might be done faster than you dealing with this whole big thing that you're talking about that could take a whole lot longer.
Well, when the last time your street was rebuilt, let's say, when the sewers were put in, when the sewers you have there, and your sewers are probably old, but when that was put in, the street was designed to put a catch basin wherever the space was available. And if you see a corner, so in Brooklyn and Queens, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm an engineer. I'm familiar with the systems, how they're different in each borough, because I have the sewer map. It's a GIS map of all our infrastructure. So with a combined sewer system, you have a sewer main running up every block, every corner. So in most corners, you have catch basins. In most blocks, you'll see 4 catch basins at every corner. And when they don't have them, it's because some other infrastructure was in the way and they couldn't design it that way. So if someone's house connection is in the way, if a gas main is in the way and can't be moved somewhere else, then a catch basin didn't go in there. Keep in mind that the street, and I'm not pointing fingers, but DOT isn't managed by engineers. So when they repave, they don't repave to legal grade. So the legal grade that the street was designed for diverts water where there are catch basins. And if the street is repaved differently, it doesn't function that way. But we don't put catch basins on the DOT's mistakes, and we can't just put a catch basin. And the thing is that when that water comes down, it's getting into the sewer and it's overwhelming the sewer. So there's nowhere for the water to go. You wanted a catch basin because you're assuming there's an empty sewer line there. And we looked at that, and if we could put one in and we thought it would help, we would try to understand that. But I look, there's a reason we employ licensed engineers and require they have certain degrees when we hire them. And we have a group, Collections Systems Investigations. They looked at if there was any short-term solutions, and there's too much water coming to your block. So big changes have to be made above you to provide relief. I mean, we have done small things that we could help, but that's too much water for any little measure, like probably a basin or some kind of permeable or one rain garden. It wouldn't help. It's too much water.
You're saying too much water. The water that go down that basin instead is going into our basements.
Yes.
Okay. I have one other thing I want to point out that maybe you know about. There was one time during a big rain with the water coming down the street, when I walked into the park at the entrance at Parkside and Coney Island Avenue, and I walk in a little bit and I see water is coming up out of a catch basin. Instead of letting the lake overflow, the park diverted the water through however it goes, and then it kind of out up the catch basin and then out down the road, out of the park and down to our block.
Yeah. Well, they probably shouldn't do that.
You're aware of that?
Well, when we were there, when we went to see there, they, like, as far as we could tell, they were bringing down the level before any heavy rainstorm, so that the pond could hold whatever water falls. But inside, you're talking about parks like. Can you do me a favor and hold on a second? So you're saying roughly where in the park did you see that? I mean, if their catch basins are overflowing, I don't know if that's the lake water or just because their sewer system is overwhelmed.
It's very close to the lake. If you go in the entrance right at Coney Island Avenue and Parkside, you walk
Coney Island and Parkside.
And it's the first street. There are 2 streets that come into there.
Park Road.
Into that first street that where the road then goes along the south edge of the park.
Okay.
It's not far in at all. It's very close to the entrance. and it's
Right.
very close to the lake. If you go a little bit farther, you will hit the Park Drive that goes all the way around. If you cross it, you will be very close to the lake.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what else we did. Their system empties into ours. We don't see our system getting surcharged. So their system is getting overwhelmed at, on their roads, and then the water's running out before it goes. Like if they had a brand new sewer where their current systems are, I don't know if that would solve all the problem, but their water is supposed to run off into our sewer system. It's just that too much of the water is not getting into their sewer system. Now that could just simply be an issue of capacity because it rains more than their system can handle. But we also noticed there's a lot of maintenance issues, basins that didn't work, sewer lines that were broken and things like that. So that could be causing what you were seeing, because if a sewer system is surcharged really badly, water can come out of the catch basin, just like you described. Does that help, I hope?
I don't know. I'll
Okay.
sit on it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Okay, we have 2 more registered speakers, and I just want to call everyone's attention to the fact that it's 8 o'clock. And I also wanted to mention that the 3 callers who are calling in, if you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6, and you can let us know if you'd like to speak. Our final 2 registered speakers at this time are Matthew Denise, followed by Eva Lewandowski.
Hi. So I think my first question was partially answered by some of the other people's questions. So thank you, Nina, and everyone else. I was wondering whether the water that's coming onto East 10th Street was flowing as as runoff from the parade grounds, or if it was coming from the park. And it sounds like it's a combination of that plus things coming up from the sewer in various areas there. So it kind of sounds like it sounds like a mess. The other part of the question, though, was going to be whether the catch basins and sewers in the park are park property, and if the park added more drainage, would they end up overwhelming the DEP sewers, and would we just end up with another iteration of this problem where the park adds more drainage and now it's backing up underground in a different way?
Well, the park owns their own drainage system. Like city facilities that are big enough to need their own drainage system, they own the drainage on the property, whether it's Brooklyn College or a NYCHA property or the park. But eventually all those systems, unless they've, you can design places like parks theoretically, if the elevation is right, to where they can handle 100% of their stormwater and none of it enters the storm sewer system. But if they did a redesign to fix the water problem, it would be a combination of gray infrastructure, which would be maybe fixing and improving the sewer system in the roads, plus adding green infrastructure, because the park is covered with trees and grass. That's what we build green infrastructure about. It's the park has water courses. If you read about our blue belts, go on our website, and the blue belt features. We redesigned water courses to handle stormwater. So they have all 3 of those features. They have impermeables, they have tons of permeable property. They have water courses, and plus a lot of the park roads are set back far enough to where it could be. I can't believe that it couldn't be redesigned to either to capture whatever storm water can't go into the sewer system once it's improved.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other half of my question was kind of at a more general level in the city. Does DEP have a goal of replacing the combined sewer system with a split sewer system, or is it kind of more of a piecemeal thing as it's needed? And then kind of to bring that more locally, it does seem like if the combined sewer system was split up into a separate storm sewer and sanitary sewer for East 10th Street, say, and kind of the surrounding blocks, that seems like it would help our problems. It wouldn't fix the flooding on the street because there's obviously still too much water there, but it would prevent sewage backing up into our basements when it rains a lot.
Well, based on what we've observed, that wouldn't help because the water comes up not just in the sewer system, but you have street flooding. You have really bad street flooding there. And the manholes have to remain open because gas has to escape from the manhole. As this, it's just like your house has a vent to allow water to flow through, through your sewer, through the pipes inside your house that go to the sewer system. So the manholes act to allow that airflow to happen. So we can't, generally speaking, you can't seal manholes. So you're getting so much overland flow that even if we separated the sewer system on your block, you would get water just going right into the sewer. You're getting that already. You're getting
it would infiltrate from the street into the sanitary sewer.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also because there's no separate trunk mains, we would just be connecting the separate sewers to a combined sewer at some other point, and you're sort of back to square one. But I think long term, as the city does big projects, the problem with the sewer system is you have to work from the bottom up. So in order to have a combined a separate sewer system, they would have to first design a system of outfalls for the combined sewer, and then they would have to build trunk mains. And then once you have trunk mains crossing, up and down Brooklyn or wherever, then you can build laterals. So we see that happening in Southeast Queens because they don't have any storm sewers, and in Staten Island, we see that process going on. So the better solutions are like storage strategies, increasing capacity locally where it helps, or getting property owners to handle more of the the stormwater that lands on there. So the stormwater rule is a general way we're going to do that. And the problem with like East 10th, I don't want to sound like a broken record. It's about stormwater management on that property.
Yeah. So at the city level, for the issues of like preventing the combined sewer outflows and things like that, is it mostly the stormwater management, and then, or is there more of is there a long-term plan to do the more separated sewers across more of the city?
No, what the long-term plan is to create storage, to create places to treat where combined sewers overflow, and also there are areas where what city agencies tend to do to fix problems is go after the low-hanging fruit, and we want to go after problems we can fix the most easily and the most quickly. So green infrastructure is a great strategy because it's inexpensive. We're building in the right of way, so we're not interfering with the gas and water and sewer mains, we're using the property and natural features. The stormwater rule is going to force new property owners to build more infrastructure on their property to handle stormwater. And then as we look at, there are always going to be like projects where, as a state of good repair, we're going to have to do a major trunk main replacement. And then that's probably where in the future they'll look for those opportunities. But we did actually we had a few projects like in coastal areas where we did separate sewers. And the most recent one I can think of, was in College Point.
Thanks.
Sure.
Our final registered speaker this evening is Eva Lewandowski, and then I will turn it over to co-chairs Barden Percent and Donald Watkins. Eva, you are still muted.
Is that better? Good.
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Commissioner Mario. I live on Buckingham Road near Church Avenue. We had a series of bad floods about 2 years ago. And after much back and forth with DEP, we realized we don't have a permanent sewer line, but also that until DEP came in and cleaned out drains pretty significantly over and over again, we were getting flooding. And I'm wondering what the regular maintenance is in our area for going through a lot of these sewer lines and clearing out the silt that is in there, because I think these these storms are blowing more silt and more leaves and more stuff into our drains, and if they're not regularly cleaned out, that one little backup causes a flood down the street. And I'd like to hear what DEP does to just regularly clean out the drains.
Well, we have drain cleaning we have cleaning programs for catch basins. Catch basins in general are inspected and cleaned on a 3-year cycle, and also in response to 301 complaints. We have about 150,000 catch basins in the city. But what we've done is we've honed that so that commercial areas that see more traffic and more dirt could be getting a 2-year cleaning or a 1-year cleaning or a 6-month cleaning, in addition to the the 301 complaints, and there are a lot of 301 complaints.
Now that's a catch basin, but I'm also talking about like the actual sewer line is just back.
Well, that's where the dirt comes from. It goes from the catch basin. Some of it comes from what people flush too. So the sewer maintenance, if we have a history of combined sewer, of what we call confirmed sewer backups, where we go out there and it's clogged, and that sewer will get more maintenance. I mean, there's a list of sewer segments that get more regular maintenance than others. So it varies from location. If the sewer doesn't get backed up often with grease or silt, then we'll give it less attention, because we're trying to do the most with the money that's allocated. That doesn't get allocated to capital projects, gets allocated to things like that, operations, maintenance. So if you can do me a favor, give the community board your location, and then I'll get information, more specific information on the complaint history, and I can let you know if it's on a regular schedule, or maybe ask them if it needs to be cleaned more often. Okay?
All right, well, I'm just going to add, again, this was not in any catch basement, but the silt was backing up into all of our sewer and into our houses, so that it's not coming from a catch basement. It's actually just dirt and leaf matter and other stuff that's settling down in our sewer line. Ours is a little unique because we don't have a regular sewer line on Buckingham Road, but just for East 10th, if there's any little corner that might have all this silt, it's going to cause a lot of problems unless it's regularly dealt with.
Okay. We'll have them look at it to see if it needs to be cleaned more often.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anya, shall we at this point start to wrap it up?
I think we should definitely start to wrap it up. I want to thank Commissioner Bruno.
Okay, well, if I can just say in conclusion, it's really been a pleasure spending the evening with everybody, and I thank you for your patience with me, and I thank you for your questions, and we'll keep pushing on to try and help you. But again, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you.
If I can make a
I'd like to say to a lot of you that are visitors here, the next group we're going to try and invite is Parks to get their side of the story and see what they can do, just to balance it out.
If I could just a last word too
before we go.
Yeah, just a quick comment. First, I want to thank you, Commissioner Bruno. Your responses have been very frank and straightforward, and I want to thank the community because I think that your questions have been very insightful, intelligent, and heartfelt. But I think we have 3 pieces of the puzzle here. We have what we've heard from the community are the problems, which have been very clearly outlined. What we have from Commissioner Bruno are a whole range of ways to try to mitigate the problems, from the overflow tanks to the repair of the sewer lines whenever they do work on water projects. And we have a 3rd piece of the puzzle, which is funding, which hopefully with the infrastructure bill, we can try to get some of that diverted specifically to the problems of CD14. So what I would ask is it possible, Commissioner Bruno, to sort of try to quantify the remediation that you feel is necessary to improve the situation in our neighborhood? So, for example, could you put a team, a consultant, to look specifically at CD14, say this is the kind of flow you've been getting, these are the specific areas that are having problems, and that this is the possible mix of solutions that would reduce the problem by 50%, 70%, or whatever. So I guess what I'm sort of asking is, can it be kind of quantified, where you say, this is what we're recommending as solutions from our experts in DEP, and you need, as a community, to persuade the city and state to provide us with blank dollars out of the 100 billion, say, as much of it as we would like, and that we go ask. Once you give us a number and a plan, then it makes sense for our electeds to go to request the funding and saying, this neighborhood needs $50 million to reduce its flooding issues by 40%. So is that something we can try to work with you in the future for?
Well, we couldn't do that on Park's behalf.
No, I'm saying just, within your own bailiwick, what you're able to control. And then I'm confident that if you vow to, work towards this kind of a solution, I'm confident we could persuade Parks to sign on and do their share.
Right. I don't know that there's, the way civil engineering works, you can't look at one community board and come up with a plan for that community board, because everything is interconnected. So the city has what you call a drainage plan, and the drainage plan gets updated sometimes if there's an upzoning, and basically that's an outline of where the sewers are and what size they are on every block. And the drainage plan indicates, but the thing about the reason, like when you change, when you upzone and you have to redo the drainage plan for the area, you're looking at a wider area than that. So it would be impossible to study how to make flooding better in the whole community board without looking at a wider area and how wide an area that could be based on the size of the community board. It could be as big as the borough of Brooklyn or half the borough of Brooklyn. So to look at one community board and say we can quantify, like we can probably tell you pretty soon how much we're going to spend to put in green infrastructure, and also if we add anything to the capital project. But it's really going to be, we really make improvements more locally than that, rather than looking at the whole community board, saying where are your problem issues, and is there something we can do that doesn't require a broader solution, like a huge build out to fix. Usually, like I said, like I know you appreciate my frankness. Usually, problems with capacity is something that's not the capacity problems that the sewers are seeing is a citywide issue. So it wouldn't be unique. There's no solution to fix that would be unique to the community board.
Okay, so then what you're saying is, if we have to escalate it to the point where it becomes a borough board issue, or where all the surrounding community boards would have to agitate for the same kind of solution, then that's something, towards which we can try to work. Because I can assure you, Brooklyn has grown. I think I saw, since many of these houses in these neighborhoods were built in 1900, the Brooklyn population has doubled. And I do not think the infrastructure has been able to keep up. It's not that it was a fault of when they were putting it in 1900, they couldn't foresee how popular Brooklyn would become. It's something that we're now facing. And, with climate change, this is a problem that's not going away and will affect all of the surrounding community districts as well. So if we have to raise it to a Brooklyn-wide issue in order to get the attention that all of the boards probably deserve, then that's something we will try to do.
It's really a citywide issue. No, all the drainage plans for every part of the city some of them will probably have to be increased, but the drainage plans have been around a really long time. So whenever someone builds as of right, it's according to the drainage plan, or it should have been anyway. Now, can I promise you that happened in the 20s and the 30s, that far back? I don't know. DEP didn't even exist back then. I'm just saying that's how we handle things now. But I think there's gonna be a lot of conversations with the city, how we deal with these terrible, rainstorms like Ida, where you don't have to live on the coast to get flooded.
Well, we very much look forward to your participation in those conversations, and thanks again so much for coming.
Sure, my pleasure.
I'm done, Don.
Have any other questions not related to this, because it's getting kind of late? Any other business? Okay. Now, some people have asked for the address of DEP. If the community board could give them that at some point, that would be great.
I can give you the address.
Oh, great.
I work there, so it's 59-17 Junction Boulevard, and we're in Flushing, and the zip code is 11373. If you could send a letter to our commissioner in general, Vincent Sapienza, and and his floor is the 19th floor. That's the best place to send Carl, if you want to send a letter to DP.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay.
Would you
Any
please
other
repeat the number 59-something-17?
I'm sorry?
Would you please repeat the number on Junction Boulevard?
Oh yeah, it's 59-17 Junction Boulevard. We're in Left Rock City.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hearing no other questions or people wanting to talk, I think we should close for the meeting. Close the meeting up today. Anybody else have any questions?
Donald, there's one more question in the chat for Mr. Bruno. Mr. Bruno, would you like to provide your email address? We put the mailing address in the chat. If you'd like to provide an email address, I'll add that to the chat as well.
I'll give you my email and my phone number.
Go ahead.
Don't be sorry.
I talk to everybody. You can ask the people. There's people on East 10th Street I've been talking to for years. They're wonderful people. My phone number is 718-595-3519. And my email is mbruno. Well, that's one word, mbruno @dep.nyc.gov. And if you somehow lose my number, I'm in the New York City Green Book, which is online.
Can I confirm it's 718-595-3519?
Correct.
Thank you.
Borough President Donovan Richards has me on speed dial in Queens.
And that is posted in the chat for anyone who's interested.
All right, Donald, if I might make a comment.
Yes.
All of this is very interesting, and I thank you very much, Commissioner, for your comments. But I'd like to make a comment on what it is that we can do as individuals at this time. And the first is contact all of your local politicians, city council, state, and let them know about the specific problems, the general problems, because they're the ones who can push for getting money moved into the budgets where people like Mr. Bruno can do some more. But there are a couple of other things we can do personally. As a CERT team chief, most of you know that's a community emergency response team. We often get asked as volunteers to go out and clean our catch basins. If we clean them off, that stuff doesn't get flushed in and doesn't clog them. So it's a good idea if you look at your catch basin with some regularity as you walk around. If it's covered with stuff, get a rake and a bag and clean it up. We also get asked after heavy snowstorms to clean around our fire hydrants. Same thing. We're just people who live in an area who do something to help mitigate the problems. As many of you probably know, as homeowners, we're responsible for keeping not only our own property clean, but 18 inches out into the street. And now they have all these leaves coming down, they're getting washed and clogged in catch basins. So let's do our part, as well as pushing the city to do as much as it can do. All right, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good suggestions. Go ahead. Any other questions? Anybody else raising their hand or looking?
No more questions, Alan.
I think we should close for the night then. That's it.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Motion to close?
We don't need a motion to close.
Can we just
That's
agree
okay.
to close?
Yes, we're closing.
Bye.
Second.
Bye.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Have a good night, everyone.
Very good. Thank you so much, Donald and Barden. Good
You're
night.
welcome. Good night.
Thank you, folks.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.